Welcome back for this new video, and I'm really happy. I just finished the call today, the clarity call, and I'm so overly happy. So, before we enter the conversation, as usual, if you feel the conversation we're having here can be beneficial for anyone you know, share the link, share the conversations, invite them in the space. I want to talk today about the skills, and I just finished the call where the client's perspective was just extraordinary, and it was a lot of insights I'm giving in those calls create something in the person that then I wonder, why is it white? Why aren't they responding? Why is they look pensive? They look like they're thinking. And for a very long time I was thinking, well, they don't care. And the thing is, what I realized is that the insights in those calls, the conversation level in those calls, are so deep in the insights, in the understanding, in the processing of certain skills, that it usually needs a little time to integrate what is being talked about. And what I realized after this call today is that what feels for me obvious is not obvious for everybody, and yet is essential for everybody. When we talked about relationship, when you hear me talking about relationship, we usually think about, well, if we talk about a relationship, I need to think about the person I want my relationship to be better with. I'm gonna think about how that person can change its behavior with me. We don't necessarily think about how can I influence the other person to change its attitude, its behavior. And so, usually when we talk about behavioral science and human, we keep talking about the same concept over and over and over again, but at deeper layers. And so, yes, I'm talking about boundaries. I'm talking about ability to say no and ability to say yes. I'm talking about emotional management. I'm talking about self-responsibility and ownership and trust. But every time I'm talking about it, depending on where you are in your journey and depending on also my own evolution, we're going to address those skills at different levels. And it's not that one level is going to be beginner and the other one is going to be advanced. It's layers of depth. So if you've never set a boundary before because you realize you've been a people pleaser all your life, then we're going to start looking at the first layer of boundaries. How easy it is for you to set a boundary, what it triggers, what fear it triggers. But if you've been setting boundaries forever, and you're on the contrary very good at setting boundaries, we're gonna look at, is that easier for me to say yes or to say no? And when I say yes, is that a real yes? Or when I say no, is that triggered by something, or is that really aligned to my values and my truth? And there is different angles to look at this concept that you've maybe heard for decades on books and personal developments and all the things you can find on internet. But there is layers and the depth to it that you don't necessarily get from a book, from an article, unless you are very dedicated, very committed, very disciplined, and when you read a book, you not read it just once and then put on a shelf. You're reading a book, taking notes, and then a couple months later reading it again, and then read it again a year later, and then see what changed when I read that same book. Do I perceive it differently? And so I have books that I actually take again and again and again, and sometimes I just open it and get it. For my newsletter, for example, I get a book and open it and I read it again, see, well, in that book something is really good. What do I want to share today? And I have on my shelf here in my office, I have few books that I use for this specifically, because I know I need to open them regularly sometimes. It's not a book, I've read them, but it's not a book that is meant to stay on the shelf for decades without reading it again. Human skills is not a process where you have A to Z, step A, step B, C, D, and then you have a finish line. Human skills are a map of different skills that you can work on in depth over and over and over again. And even me, I'm still working on it. And the way I integrate it today is different than the way I'm going to integrate it tomorrow or in 10 years, and the way I was comprehending it, understanding it 5 years ago. So the call I had was very insightful, because on the paper, that person may be a manager, maybe the CEO of a business, maybe having a team of 10 people working with her, with him. Or that person may be starting a career or changing career, changing path. And so what I see is that it doesn't matter where you are professionally or personally. What it matters is that you feel that you want to work on certain skills now. And you may want to work on your leadership when you start a job because you want to feel more confident, or you may want to work on your leadership when you've already had 20 plus years experience in the job, because you feel you need to refresh the skills. You feel you need to refresh your perspective. It doesn't matter. All what matters is, what do you want to work on today, and what are you willing, what time and effort are you willing to put into it? I spend hours reflecting in contemplation of different things about my behavior, my intuition, my emotions, how I choose, how I decide, how I relate to people. And then I pivot, I redirect. I choose to do better. And so it's important to understand that human skills are not something that you're gonna check. Okay, I worked on my leadership, done. I worked on my emotional management, done. I worked on my problem solving skill, done. It's not a checklist like that. Because every time, every new circumstances, the way you walk your path, you're going to change yourself. Your circumstances are going to change. You're going to change as a person. And so what you want to explore may change too. And then you can get back to that skill and deepen the learning, deepen the integration of it, refresh, get a new perspective on it. So I wanted to share that today. It's so important that we get to work on ourselves. Some people see it as personal development, and it is in a way, but I see it as a necessity to thrive individually, But to thrive individually, we have to relearn how we behave with each other in a community, collectively. I'll let you reflect on that, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.